Hey everyone, this is Mira, and I'll be giving you the grand tour of the brand new Hexels 2. When you open Hexels, you're immediately greeted by a fancy new file window. In this window, you can pick an existing template, open a recent file, or load up a sample file to boost your inspiration levels. Before I jump into the tutorial, I'd first like to bring your attention to the newly designed interface, which gives you full control of the layout. You can detach windows, drag to sort them into tabs, leave them afloat, or dock them on the right. Now let's take a look at the painting tools. Click the icon on the top right to show how the grid matches the current shape mode. In this case, I'm using classic hexagons. Your tools are lined up on the left. These include your standard brush, an outline brush for smaller details, selection tools, and a gradient tool to name a few. There's a diverse selection of grids to choose from under the Shape tab, such as Pixel for good old-fashioned pixel art, Custom for your own bespoke grid, and Voronoi for a mosaic effect. Our most popular and powerful mode, Trixel, allows you to paint with all sorts of different shapes on the same canvas. Triangles and hexagons, ramps and shards, and rectangles all fit together snugly on the same grid. A powerful feature within Trixels is the Super Grid. When Super Grid is checked, the grid remembers the brush shape that you're painting with. When you check Preserve Super Grid, the previous subgrids are remembered, which allows you to quickly repaint those areas. For even more detail, you can subdivide your grid by clicking Run Script, Subdivide Trixels. The Document tab contains global settings like canvas and grid options. Under Effects, we have a great feature called Halftone Mode. When enabled, brush size is controlled by opacity. If you're using a drawing tablet, you can choose opacity in the pen pressure drop-down menu, which will vary the size of your shape. Moving on to Colors and Palette. You have two different color pickers to work from, and every color you paint with will turn into swatches in your palette. A super cool feature that the palette window has is the ability to create gradients. Place a color on one swatch, add another parallel color, and then drag the first color to the second to create a gradient. For a final touch, use Texture and Glow to enhance your piece. Both tabs have preset libraries where you can pick existing maps. Customize the look by importing your own glow and texture maps. You can add multiple textures and change their individual settings. Let's take a look at our shiny new animation system. Bring up the animation editor by clicking on the Timeline tab. To switch back to Standard Layers view, simply click the Layers tab. Animation in Hexels is done frame by frame, and each frame has its own stack of layers. You can create layers first and switch to Timeline, or choose to start in timeline mode and add layers where needed. Use a thumbnail slider to set the size of the thumbnails, choose your desired frame rate and initial frame count in the text boxes here. The plus buttons in the middle are for adding frames. The one on the left adds a frame with a normal cell, while the one on the right adds a frame with a key cell. A key cell repeats every frame until it hits another key cell. You can also double-click a cell to turn it into a key cell. The plus buttons on the far left add and duplicate layers. And last but not least, these are your playback controls. For my animation, I'm going to add streams of water coming down from the beams. I've used the outline tool to paint the stream and shifted the highlights down by 1 unit after every cell. I've used the standard brush tool to paint shards that emulate the splash detail. And I have repeated this method for the remaining cells. You'll notice that I've used the onion skinning button to make sure I was not painting over the same shard of the previous cell. Now that I've got my waterfall, I'm going to animate glow and opacity to add a nifty shimmering effect to the water. Start by clicking the key icons next to each slider. This lets you set a different glow and opacity value for each frame and animate the properties over time. Before exporting, I use the Frame tool to define which section of the image will be saved out. You can use the free framing mode to drag out an arbitrary selection, or use the fixed mode to snap the tool to your desired resolution. To export your animation, click File, Export Animation. You'll see a window with the option to export a sprite sheet, animated GIF, or a folder of images for later composition. And that's a wrap on our introduction to Hexels 2. If you created a masterpiece, feel free to submit it to any of these social media platforms. We'd love to see it. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our website to learn more about Hexels.